Breaking the cycle to step forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris Tuck and Beverley Ann.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward podcast with myself, Chris Tuck, and
I'm Beverley Ann.
And we are doing a special edition for you today to celebrate 2 years completed of our podcast. So, Beverley, where are we going to start with this one?
Wow. The fact that I had a mad moment last year and suddenly thought I'm going to enter myself for the Brighton Marathon, which happened to fall at the beginning of April, which was fantastic. And then if I was going to take part, which was a vision of mine, my goal was to complete it. And if I was going to do it, I'd fundraise for the charity that you're founder of, which is Survivors of Abuse, or otherwise known as SOB. And that's where the breaking the cycle part of our podcast comes from, because that was a hashtag that you always use, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And where did the second part of our podcast come from?
To Step Forward, because that's the name of my practice, because it's about, you know, when you're in recovery, overcoming stress, trauma, particularly from abuse, even the tiniest of step forward can make such a difference in your life and make a huge change. It doesn't always have to be great big steps. And I think that's also my mentality around the marathon, because for me, I'm not a runner. So instead of thinking, oh, I can't do it because I can't run, my other way is I really want to take part and I'm going to be me. So I gave myself a time of 8 hours, but if I'd completed it in 10, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And I won't say yet, but I did complete it, and we'll share that later.
100%. Now, 2 years completed. So back in 22, we took a weekend in Canberra Sands, and that is where we brainstormed the idea of this podcast. And that's when we launched it, didn't we, on a very windy Canberra beach?
Yes, it was. And if anybody's thinking about launching a podcast, you know, there's lots of people that say you've got to have this equipment, you've got to have that equipment, you've got to have this in place. You know what? Just record and do it. We did it, literally recorded it on your iPhone, and then we uploaded it. And now, even today, we still use Zoom. It's about being yourself, about being authentic, and that's what we wanted to come over. But I would also say I don't recommend caravanning in April because it was freezing.
Yeah, it was, but it meant that we knuckled down and got on with planning probably the first 3 months of podcasts.
Yes, and when I think back, again, the planning, you think, oh, you can't plan too much because some of it has to grow organically, but we needed something to consider and what we wanted to cover. And I really think that helped. So we had something to aim for, but we didn't necessarily break it down to the minute detail. We wanted it to naturally flow as well. And the biggest thing we wanted was it to be a conversation and to be uncut, raw and authentic. And that's what we've achieved. And when we say uncut, occasionally we've had to take something out. That's because maybe I've quoted something wrong. Or if we've had a guest who on reflection thought, no, I need to take that bit out, that's fine. And even if sometimes we've had someone who we think the podcast is brilliant, you know, excellent, but they felt that they're not ready to share that. So we've deleted it. And that's important, isn't it?
It is for us, because we always say to our guests that we record, we upload it privately, we share it with them, we give them chance to watch and listen. And when they give us their full permission, we then release it.
And that's why we don't want to do live. Not saying that you and I wouldn't do live ourselves.
No, well, we do it all the time.
Yeah, but not live with guests, because it gives our guests that 100% guarantee that they're in full control, especially if they're sharing their stories.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
when we came into our first year, we celebrated in Brighton.
Yes, yes. That was nice, that was.
Yeah. And we stayed in a hotel. So do you want
We
to share
did.
about that?
Yeah, that was quite funny, wasn't it? Because obviously to keep costs down, we shared a room, twin beds, if I remember rightly. And we both said to each other, "Oh, I don't know how this is going to work out because I can't always sleep through the night." Both of us don't sleep through the night. And I always watch my phone, something. I usually watch comedy and put the earphones in, and you went, "Oh, snap. I'll do the same."
And I'll listen to, I might put on a podcast or I might put something on, but something to relax me. And then it sends me back to sleep. But isn't it funny how you get so used to doing things, for self-care, and you just assume you're the only one who needs to do that. So even now, we're still finding out more about each other, and other people. And that's why this conversation in our podcast is so important, because it has such an impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Whenever people give us feedback, they just sort of like say, you just get it. You get to a depth where we don't often hear that from other people in other podcasts. And I think it's because it just comes from a place of, we share everything and anything, and it's just genuine, and it's just from a place of not being scared to share, even if it's very uncomfortable. Even for us, some of the subjects are really uncomfortable. Maybe we've not even shared it with ourselves or each other, and then all of a sudden we're on a topic of conversation and something will come in my head or your head, and we just blurt it out, and it's just like, oh, did I really just share? Yes, you did.
Yes, yeah. So in our second year, we had guests, which was amazing. And we won't go through them all today because we want to go more into about the marathon and
Yeah,
why the fundraising, which is
is
important.
important.
But
Yeah.
I still can, I think of all our guests that we've had and the journey, and I look back and I think, wow. So,
Yeah.
a huge, huge thank you. And if anyone's listening and they would like to be a guest, or they know someone that they feel would be worthwhile having, or they'd like to hear about, let us know. We can only ask. So
Yeah.
that's for our next third year.
Yeah.
So coming back to the marathon. So when you knew I was going to take part, what did you think?
I just thought it's a very brave thing to do, because I've done a few marathons myself and I know how hard it is. I know what commitment it takes, and I take my hat off to anybody that does marathons.
Yeah. But I think it's also important for me, walking is part of my meditation,
Yeah.
and it's so important to me. And this winter, what it gave me was something to focus on. And I'm very much about changing with the seasons. So I like walking at the end of the working day. But in the
Yeah.
winter, if you do that, it means you're walking in the dark, and that's not good for me. So I change things around in the winter. But to have a purpose to do it really helped. And I
Yeah.
did the mile a day as well, for
Yes.
Fatima's campaign with Action for Children, and that really, really ramped up my training and making sure that I was going out every day. Whereas normally, if it was raining, I'd be thinking, "Oh, no, thank you."
Well,
So
even with your dogs, you don't walk in
yeah,
the rain, Miss
they won't
Beverley.
they won't
They
walk in the
won't
rain.
walk.
No, although it's amazing because they did this year, um,
Yeah.
and that's unusual. They did. Um, but not for long. They really are fair weather. I mean, I've been out with them sometimes and they literally go around the corner, do what they've got to do, and then back. And there's
That's
no,
so funny, because my
yeah.
dog will not let me not walk her. She knows the time and she's there. Come on, let's go.
No. So the walking part, that wasn't an issue. The issue was I'm not a jogger. So I did start my training, and I started to do the apps, the traditional apps where you start building up. So you jog, you walk, you jog, you walk. And I just couldn't get on with the jogging. And
Yeah.
I will say for a little while, it made me feel quite deflated. It was
Yeah.
like, will I actually get to do this? And I will be honest, I nearly didn't do the
Yeah.
marathon. And I was doing it with a colleague. She was also doing it for another charity, MND. And I will say it's Marcella. So hello, Marcella. And
Well
Marcella
done,
was the one
Marcella.
who kept encouraging me. And then once she said, oh, I've got someone that can take your place if you really don't want to do it. That was about a couple of months before. And then I was like,
No,
of course I
it's
want
my
to do it.
place. Someone takes it away from you and you're like, no.
Yeah. So once I got it in my head, it was just a case of you are going to complete it.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the running. But there is something that I learned about called jeffing. And jeffing is when you walk.
I thought that was another word for swearing, jeffing.
Yeah, exactly. You walk for no more than 30 seconds, but then you jog, say 15 seconds or 30 seconds. So you walk, jog. And again, I tried a bit of that, but it wasn't for me. So I
Jeffing
went with the
wasn't working
mindset.
for Beverley.
No, I went with the mindset 8 hours. And if it takes me 10 hours, that's okay too. And I'll be me. And so on the actual day, that was interesting because you came down, Chris, but there was a bit of a train strike either side of the Sunday, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. Yeah. But thankfully, that train to you was good for me because I just thought it would have been really unfair for them to have cancelled the train or made it hard for people to get to Brighton to take part. That would have just been awful.
Yeah. Sadly, that did have a reflection on some people because they couldn't get
Yeah.
down the day before.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, it did have
Yeah.
an impact. But on the
Yeah.
day, thankfully,
Yeah.
it changed. So I was down, obviously, with Marcella. We got to Preston Park where you start. And it's a bit like being at the airport because there's that nervousness, that exciting nervousness, but knowing that you've got to do things and where have you got to go, and you have a big bag that you drop off and that they give that to you at the end when you're finished. And then there's the toilets and you keep going. That's part of it. And then all of a sudden you were there. You popped up and you met us by the prayer tent, which was, I really liked that. That gave us a minute to sit in there and just sit and contemplate and just calm down
And focus.
Yeah. So what was that like for you when you came and joined us?
Well, I wasn't very impressed to get to Brighton, going through Preston's Park and then having to walk back from Brighton to Preston's Park. I was not impressed with that at all because I was thinking, I'm here to watch and encourage and support, not to take part in a marathon. But hey ho, I walked to Preston Park, found you all really easily. And yeah, the atmosphere is electric. It is brilliant. And to sit in that prayer tent, just to have that moment of focus, I think for you guys more than me was really important.
Yeah, but even for you as well, it was still a long day. It wasn't like you would
Oh my
come to.
goodness, no, that was a long day. Yeah, yeah. If anything, I was going, where is she? She must speed up. I need some dinner.
So
No,
the good
but
thing was you
yeah.
had a tracker and you could watch where we were for the most of it.
Yeah, you got stuck. The tracker got stuck for a little while. So when I sort of like was trying to get ahead of you, because obviously your route is very convoluted because you've got to cover 26 miles, sorry, 0.2 miles. But for me, I was trying to get ahead and so I could get some footage of you and so that I could support you. And there was quite a lot of the marathon that we didn't have access to. So you were going around all by yourself, but we could only go a certain route. So I was waiting there and then the tracker got stuck and I just thought, God, have I missed her? So every time someone ran past me, I put their number in the tracker and I'm thinking, well, they've now done 35k and Bev's not there yet. And I've just seen them, so I've not missed her. That's how I kept track of it in the end. And then when I realised that you wasn't like near me, I then walked up and found you, and then walked with you for the rest of the way, which was a good
Well,
thing,
let's come
because
back
we
a
met
bit.
up.
Let's come back a bit, because obviously we set off, but before we set off, so you get funneled into different colours.
Yes.
And I chose to stay back and be in the last one with Marcella, and I really wanted to be in the last one because you've got this 7-hour pacer.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to be with the slowest pacer, follow their pace to get going and get comfortable, and have an idea, but not to overexert. And what was fantastic, they tell people, don't go off too fast, don't go off too fast. So I ended up with a pacer on my own, which I had one-to-one tuition. And before I knew it, we were at the second mile. I couldn't believe that. I missed the first mile marker. It's like, wow. So I just got comfortable, had all my foods and everything ready. And it was amazing. So what was lovely, because obviously most people have gone through, but as we passed Brighton Pavilion, there were still quite a few people, and that was lovely because that really gets you going. Saw someone that I knew, and they even had my name on a board. I was like, oh, hello. So that was like, and then the hills start. And no, they don't look big. But when you're about to do 26.2 miles.
And they're right at the beginning, practically.
Which I did know. I'd studied the course, and I knew that if I got the first 17 miles out the way, then you've done 2/3 of it, and you've done the hardest part of it. That's how I looked at it. So, and then you go off. But I stayed with the pacer up until 11 miles, and then I just dropped back a little bit. So the killer for me was on the way back towards the pier at mile 16, the 16 marker.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought to take my jewellery off. And so it's not uncommon for my hands to swell. I considered my legs with the compressed socks, etc. Forgotten about my hands. And then I realised my fingers were swollen up. They were a bit white. I needed to take my jewellery off. And I was feeling a bit woozy. My legs were a little bit, and I couldn't get my rings off. And there's that panic at first.
Yeah.
And then I saw a first aid, and then I was like, no, calm down, blow out, keep walking, you're okay. Just keep licking your fingers. You need to just keep calm. And I finally got them off, which was good. Next thing, it was number 17. And then I was like, got it. Then you had all the people around the pier, which was fantastic. But the next couple were hard. It was all flat, but you didn't see many people. And now I'm getting tired.
We couldn't access it.
Yeah, so now I'm getting tired. And suddenly, out of nowhere, at about 19:20, I suddenly saw my husband and his daughter and her partner. And I was like, I need some sweets, because by now I was tired and I needed to focus. And although I had a little rucksack, I didn't want to undo it. I'd used all my protein stuff, but I didn't have any sweets. And that's all I wanted. So I was like, please get me some sweets. So they went off. And then I started to see people I knew, and that really, really helped. So I'm actually pleased I didn't see people till the end.
Yeah.
And then as I came round on about the 22nd, that's when I saw you and Emma and Jay. And then that's when there was that other girl, and we won't say any names. We'll just say she was walking for Mind, because we haven't asked her permission, so I don't want to do anything. And she actually had recognised what was on the back of my T-shirt, which was about the podcast. Yeah. And she recognised, she said to me about Chris Tuck. And I said, yes, she's my co-host. Yeah. And with that, we got talking, which was great. And she knew you through social media, and that helped her. And then, like you say, you walked the last 3-4 miles. But then just as we came round to the beach part, that is like how much more, and it's like focus on the I-360, because I knew the finish line was before that. And we got to mile 25 and we stopped for a picture to be taken.
We did, yeah.
And then I could start to feel my legs seizing. So I'd been using this mental, I'm going to finish it, I'm going to finish it, keep going, keep going, keep going. And it was weird, my legs just kept moving and my body kept moving, but I knew I couldn't stop. If I stopped, I wouldn't get going again. And suddenly, there's the finish line, and we jogged over the finish line. This young lady doing mine, and you videoed it and it was fantastic.
Yeah, didn't give me a thought for me, did you? Like, you know, you just done 26.2 miles and then you started jogging, and I'm like there going, hang on, wait for me.
Oh, but it was really fantastic. There was people I knew on the finish line. My poor husband couldn't get to me. He was shut out, and then they couldn't get at all. But the good thing was I actually managed to do it in 7 hours 21. So I had an average speed of 16-minute mile, which I cannot tell you how proud I am of that. And for anyone who wants to see any of the videos that we did, any of the pictures that we did, we've got a little reel that's on YouTube, and we'll put the link underneath this audio podcast, or if you're watching it on YouTube, we'll put the link underneath so that you can watch it afterwards as well. And it just gives a little bit of flavour of the whole day. So yeah, that was amazing. And then a couple of large gin and tonics afterwards.
And a massive big blister on your foot.
I've got one of those on each side, so it's still not completely healed, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, the self-care this week is just as important
Yeah.
as the preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I've been very aware of. And we're recording this next weekend, and I can feel now the adrenaline come down, because the adrenaline was,
Yeah,
I couldn't
it's
actually
massive.
sleep that night.
Yeah.
So I've really had to look after myself, and you can really feel the adrenaline and cortisol levels, but
Yeah.
also the serotonin to get you through. Whereas now it's all settling down. Been really careful with my diet this week to make sure that I didn't overload. And I mean that in a way of, I didn't want to start going into the sugar, because if you continue with the sugar and the caffeine, then I wasn't going to sleep properly, and my body wouldn't re-heal properly. And that's
Yeah.
been really important. But I still can't believe I did it.
That keep you going for quite a while.
Yeah, and I haven't worn this week,
It's
but
quite
I have
really
been carrying it around
colourful.
with me.
Oh, have you?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. So I'm going to bring it up to the camera so you can have a real look.
Oh, it says
And what's
Brighton.
Brighton, and it's got the braille at the bottom as well. And we did
Brilliant.
see a couple of supported runners who have restrictive sight or were actually blind. So yeah, so never say never. I'm not doing next year.
Yeah.
But I would consider in the future possibly doing London. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying I'm going to run it, but take part. That's a thought. But what was also really interesting is when I was struggling, when I got to like mile 16, I was like, I've been fundraising for SOB, survivors of abuse. Think of the difference this will make, this money will make, and what the impact of it, and just also thinking about the recovery after abuse. You know, no journey or recovery after abuse is simple. There are times that you think, is this the right thing? Do you see what I mean? And sometimes it gets challenging, but you keep pushing through, and then it comes to you, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have actually been working today, and
I have, yes.
would you like to explain about what the funding goes towards, any fundraising that happens, what happens with it?
So most of the money will go towards actually facilitating the 8-week course, and I'm currently on the 10th course, and we're on week 2 of 8. So, and that takes a lot out of me delivering it, and also supporting the individuals that come to the course. But it's the funding that people like yourself, Bev, that raise, that, as I said, fund these courses. And people that come on the courses, it has a life-changing and far-reaching impact on them. So when I've applied for funding in the past, it's always been, oh, just 8-week calls, da 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 da, and then I sort of like do. I use the last course as testimonials. How did you feel before? How did you feel after? That kind of thing. And then I've got turned down for my recent funding bids because I didn't show long-term impact, but they didn't ask for that. So I didn't give it. But if they had asked for it, I would have given it. So I went back to my clients that I still support now and asked them for long-term impact. So if you don't mind, can I read them out? I've just got 2.
Absolutely.
And I think it will just send the message across clearly rather than me going, oh, my program's fantastic. Duh, 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 duh. So this is other people's words. I'm not going to read their name, but I'm just going to read their testimonial. So I participated in the very first course, and it was the best thing I ever did in helping me process my lived trauma and the effect it had on my life. Even one-to-one therapy didn't have the impact and effect that this course has had. The best thing I took from the course that I use daily on a long-term basis is how my mind and body react when I think I'm in danger. The freeze, flop, or flee response and how the body reacts to adrenaline being constantly released and the impact this has on my body. My mind and body think they are in constant danger because of the childhood abuse and the trauma impact. I use methods taught in the classes to bring myself back to the present and breathing techniques I learnt from the course to calm myself down. This revelation blew my mind. So before I carry on, this knowledge is common to many people that are healing or have healed from trauma, but it hasn't disseminated down to people that don't know about it, if you know what I mean. If you know, you know, but if you don't, and there's many people out there that don't even know this freely available information. So what I've shared on the course isn't anything that I've come up with or it's new. It's out there, but it's just not been shared.
I think also the power of your of any workshop as well, especially your 8-week course, is when you've got peer-to-peer support. So other survivors, victim survivors there, other people sitting next to you that you can look at and think, oh, you've been through the same thing. Oh,
Yeah.
And you don't have to say anything, but it makes you realize that you're not alone, that especially when you isolate, when you don't speak out, you don't have the words. Sometimes to be able to hear someone else saying da da da, and then it's, oh, I do that as well. It's like I'm normal, and I think that's really is the impact of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'll just carry on with this
Yeah.
lady. This revolution blew my mind. I used to think that I was stupid, that I couldn't deal with normal life. I stayed at home mostly because that's where I felt safe. I was scared something bad would happen to me, as so many things already had. The more I did the breathing techniques and the more I started to understand how the amygdala works concerning fears, emotions, and motivation, and the impact of trauma I suffered, that's when I felt I had woken up. For the first time in my life, I understood. I started to control some of that fear and anxiety, and I started living, really living, not just existing. I volunteered in a charity shop, so you know who this is, gaining confidence and experience. I gained new skills, new friends, and I really love it. I now work there 3 to 4 days a week and have applied to be assistant manager because I can control my fears and anxiety when they rear up. My past does not define my future. I've travelled to Australia. I'm going to the Sydney Opera House. It's always been a dream and something that's never been fulfilled because I used to think I wasn't worth it. Things like that didn't happen to people like me. Oh, was I wrong? Meeting people like me on the course was eye-opening, just as you said.
Yeah.
I saw ordinary people who have suffered trauma and were still suffering from emotional, mental, and physical conflict years later. One of the classes was about future goals and aspirations. We all had goals and dreams we wanted to dream, just like the rest of the human race. We were asked to write down some of the long-term visions. One lady wanted to move to France, and she's now been living there for 3 years. I'm going to Sydney Opera House because I was made to realise my dreams are just as important as everyone else's. I count. My fears would not have allowed me to do this before I attended the course. During lockdown, my life was turned upside down, like many, and control of my life was yet again taken away. I struggled, as control of myself is one thing I must have as an adult. As a child, I had no control, and the abuser had total control. The twice weekly meetings with survivors online was a lifesaver, because that's what I did, Bev. Because we couldn't meet, I upped my twice monthly meetings to twice weekly. These were a lifesaver. These survivors understood me, where I was coming from about my control issues, childhood trauma, and how anxious and scared I was made to feel again during the pandemic. Even now, I reach out to the group whenever I need to vent, want some advice, have a query, a dilemma, or want to just have some support. They just understand where I'm coming from. Where others would not get me, they just get me. I also offer support, advice and insight and information to them when they need it. We talk, share problems, meet up twice a year. I've made some lifelong friends within the community. I also try to eat healthier and drink more water, as I've learnt the impact of cravings and emotional eating on the course. When I'm feeling low, sugar will give me an instant high, but the slump after leaves me feeling sluggish and tired, and I'm more inclined to give in and give up, to a low mood. I then don't have the energy to think positively. So this is the downward spiral that people get into. I still struggle with nightmares, but I'm rereading the book as it has tools and strategies in it that help me whenever I hit a bump in the road. Whenever I have a panic attack and I know it's about past trauma, I know what to do. Once I've conquered by rereading the book, I feel better. I'm not going to read the next paragraph because it's pertinent to her, and I don't want to put that out there. I love writing poems, talking and sharing my story to inspire others within the Facebook group, survivor organisations, and much more because of survivors of abuse. If you throw a pebble in a pond, it has ripple effect, and this ripple effect changes the lives of survivors and those around them. My partner and my children have also benefited from the changes that have been made to my life. We are all much happier, and I've been able to be honest and open to my family about the abuse. All I can say is thank you for changing my life.
Yeah. And that, I didn't know about that testament, the wording, but it really does make a difference. And that's what kept me motivated, thinking about where the fundraising was going to be. And I think that's important because we know that people fundraise for all different reasons, but it's important to know what's happening at the end. So anybody listening, if they ever want to do something and they want to fundraise for survivors of abuse, even if it's not on the recognised as a charity at that race, you can get it added. Because when I first applied for Brighton Marathon, survivors of abuse wasn't on there, and then they rectified that near enough straight away, didn't they?
They did. So that was a testimonial from the first course. Now I'm just going to read you a shorter one from the one that ran in March 22. So it's sort of up to date, but not.
Yes.
A few things that I learned on the course, which I've incorporated into my life, are to maintain self-care, even at times when I feel okay. I have a toolkit of things to do when I don't feel okay.
Yeah.
So it's really important to practice it when you're feeling good, so that you can call upon it when you're not feeling good. And you've spoken about self-care on loads of our podcasts. Whether that be exercise, walking in nature, eating healthier meals, as well as the importance of nutrition, the main thing that will always remain with me is coming to terms with the fact that the abuse took place in the first place. acceptance. The course was recommended to me by 1 in 4. Upon arriving, I was frustrated that I had to even join such a course due to the sexual abuse which took place in my early teens. However, Chris helped me to view myself as a survivor rather than a victim, which has been a hard pill to swallow. So this particular individual found it really difficult, even looking at the title of my course, the title of the book. She was really angry about it. And I thought that was really interesting reaction to see her. She sort of like looked at the book and pushed the book away. And we laugh about it now, but I can understand why she did that, because it was almost like all this harm's been caused to her, and she's the one that's undergone this harm and hurt, and she's the one having to pick up the pieces and sort it out. Why should she be in that position? And lots of individuals that have endured abuse feel the same. However, Chris helped me to view myself. So we just read that. The WhatsApp group which Chris set up for members and her regular check-ins via Zoom has been an incredible source of support. In fact, attending the calls along with the support has given me strength to report my perpetrator to the police in end of 23. So she came on the course beginning of 22. 18 months later, so she's worked through some of her stuff, she was able to report her abuser. And that's not for everybody, but for this person, it was the right thing. The group has been helpful for me to air my frustrations and struggles amongst others who have had similar experiences in having to deal with abuse, no matter what form it has taken. Through attending the course, I've learned to be kind to myself, shifting the blame off of me onto the perpetrator. That was something that I carried for 22 years, and it gave me the strength and made it a lot easier for me to share my story with my family and loved ones. So there's some similar themes running through these testimonials. The ongoing support has helped me take stock of my life overall. The way I communicate with my daughter, I am less overbearing, scared, and super protected of her. I'm now all of those things, but in a much healthier way. Through the kind ways in which I've been supported, I was able to support another family member through a court case addressing the sexual abuse, which if I had not attended the course, I feel that that period would have broken me, because she would have been re-triggered herself because of her own experiences. I no longer put everything into my work to feel I have some sort of control over something. Thought that was really interesting, because me and you still do that. I'm now engaged with work in a much healthier and balanced way, and no longer feel like I'm living on autopilot. Overall, I'm grateful that this course was available to me. I've undergone CBT and counselling, but being amongst people with somewhat shared experience outweighs all of that. And this experience has been a wholesome, authentic level of understanding and support. It has had a massive impact on the decisions that I've made and where I am now mentally. Support in this form, to me, is really instrumental in supporting the healing of survivors. So I don't know, I couldn't have come up with those myself, because it's personal recovery, isn't it, to what they've been through.
Absolutely. So if anybody who wants to fundraise, and it's fair to say, one of the things I will say is currently your workshops are held in South London at a venue there. But that's not to say that you wouldn't go anywhere elsewhere, but it's making sure there's 8 people that can access that course, because some people actually travel every week to go to that course, and it's they get there at what time? 9 o'clock?
10. We start at 10
at
to
10
give everyone a
o'clock
chance to get there.
And finish at
1:30.
1:30. So some people travel quite a distance, don't they?
Well, people have come from the South Coast, they come from North London, and North London to South London doesn't sound far, but it is.
It is. And
it can be a 2-hour journey each way.
Yeah. So just want to highlight that. But if somebody wanted you to host a workshop over the 8 weeks, in a different location, it's best for them to contact you and ask about the possibility, because I know that you'll travel
I
anyway.
will, obviously, but they would have to fund correctly us to do the work. That's all, you know.
Yeah,
And there are plenty of organisations and people out there that have got funds and deep pockets and can make this happen if they truly wanted to.
absolutely. So before we end this podcast,
Yeah.
what are your last thoughts, Chris?
I'm just really thankful to people like yourself who do the fundraising, and I have just had a large fundraiser from a local company as well. So we've been struggling with our fundraising for since we started. We run the charity on a shoestring. We would love to take the charity to the next level, and take these courses nationwide and train up fit pros to deliver who are survivors, and then train up survivors to become fit pros, and then train in the course. And we would love to have this nationwide, but what's stopping us is that big pot of money that's needed to make all of that happen. So my dream would be to able to step back from facilitating the course myself and managing other trainers to deliver it. I mean, that's where I would like to take it. But without funding, you just can't. So yeah, if there's any philanthropists out there that want to get behind the cause, then we're waiting to meet you, please.
Absolutely, and you're putting it out there for the next year. Never say never. Unless you speak about your vision,
Yeah,
nobody knows how to help. So
yeah,
my last thoughts is just anybody who has a vision about doing anything,
yeah,
don't compare yourself to what others can do it in. You know, I completed that in 7 hours 21, and I am so proud. But
and you
I'll
should
also
be.
tell you, there was a lady that didn't complete it
Yeah,
until after midnight.
yeah.
Now that I'm like, wow,
That she
wow.
kept going.
She just kept going. And yeah, there were people that did it in 3 hours, four
Yeah,
hours, 5 hours, and well done. I'm not taking it away from anyone. It's about the completing that's
yeah,
important. And that's what I'm trying to highlight. And doing it for what's right for you,
yeah,
because, you know,
100%.
it's hugely inspirational. And lastly, if anyone's got any questions, as usual, they can contact us on breaking the cycle 2stepforward@gmail.com. If you've got any thoughts about how you'd like us to celebrate our 3rd year, that would be interesting this time next year. But for now, thank you for listening, or thank you for watching. And it's goodbye from me, Beverly Ann, and
Goodbye from me, Chris.
bye
All right, everyone. See you soon. Bye for now.
bye.